People who have been on TV game shows, what are some behind the scenes secrets that regular viewers don't know about? I was on Cash Cab. You can't just hail a cab in New York, which turns out to be the Cash Cab. There is a vetting process, but you don't know you are going to be on the show, so the reaction is genuine. Also, there is a lot of awkward silence time while he is listening to the producer in his ear. There is a cameraman riding shotgun unseen on TV. The money he gives is prop money for TV. They mail you a check after the show airs. Ben Bailey was genuinely a nice guy. They let the other girl in the showcase showdown, Price is Right, reb it after the audience booed her original bid. Something silly low like $10,000. When it aired, they cut her original bid and showed only her second winning bid. I lost. A work colleague of mine was one of the couples in Married at First Sight. She had a horrible experience, needed counseling afterwards, and is still receiving an appearance fee, read hush money, even though her season aired like 5 years ago. Her words, "Unreal, may as well be a documentary." Was in the audience at a Food Network taping, and Iron Chef America really is a 60-minute competition. That's not fudged. Judging, on the other hand, takes forever. I was in the audience at The Price is Right. You wait like 4+ hours just to get into the taping. They come by and give you a short interview to see if you are a good prospect to make it to contestant row. I was with a group of 4 and none of us made it. The studio audience is significantly smaller than it appears on TV. Drew Carey told jokes between filming. The set is tiny. The wheel is tiny. No secrets to reveal except that they must use some serious lenses and angles to make it appear bigger. It was a long day, but it was a cool experience. I auditioned for X Factor. You don't go to the celebrity judges first, you go in front of some off-camera judges. So every terrible and horrible singer you see on the show has already been told they are better than the many talented ones not deemed TV worthy, which makes it a lot more disgusting to me. I was on Wheel of Fortune. You have to get there at 5 AM where you draw straws with other contestants to decide when you will film. They filmed the entire week of episodes in one day. Pat Sajak is incredibly friendly and interacted with us on every break. The wheel is heavy. My wife got a tattoo on a tattoo competition show. They gave her headphones to wear while she was being tattooed, but she wasn't allowed to actually plug them in and listen to music. Pure product placement lol. Other than that, it was a really good experience. Producers worked with her for several weeks leading up to and made sure she got a tattoo subject and style that she wanted. My teacher was on Wheel of Fortune Australia and he won a life supply of WD-40. It turns out with average usage a can of WD-40 lasts 20 years. So a life supply is 4 cans. I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and it's all scripted. The filming took half a day for 30 minutes of film. When you win the intro round, you are taken out to get your makeup on, and then they instruct you how to act when you celebrate. The reason the audience is so completely useless, and why you see so many press wrong on obvious answers, is because 20-30% of the audience is friends and family to the other 7 contestants who are waiting for their turn. We spent 2 days in the studio, and if the initial contestant loses, the others get their chance. If one contestant goes far and takes a lot of time, no one else gets a chance. So the audience tells the wrong answer on purpose. Producers keep an eagle eye on contestants throughout the day, even escorting you to the bathroom. This is because of the quiz show scandals of the 1950s. And because the whole week tapes in a day, you have to bring 4 changes of clothes with you, all in solid colors so the patterns don't bleed on camera. This was the 80s, so recording technology may have improved since then. Not a gamma shell, but was in the audience for the Steve Harvey show. Holy crap, is he a shallow and fragile individual. We were told we could ask him questions between takes if he was in a good enough mood, which he would only be in if we reacted well during takes. We also were not allowed to ask him any questions about his teeth or mustache. He also said that his lifelong dream was always to just be on television and that's it. Edit. Wow. My top comment is about Steve Harvey and how terrible he is. In Deal or No Deal, only the interesting people get picked. If you are outgoing and excited, you've got a high chance of being selected. Also, if you appear to be their target contestant, but turn out to be a dud, then I think they have the option of not putting you on air and no prize for you. Whether that is a threat they follow though with or not, I'm not sure. Was on a MTV game show called Fist of Zen on MTV. Basically a group of people subjected to painful and nauseating tasks for cash. We won every round, but the producer asked us to purposefully fail one to change things up. Despite losing one round, we were still paid the full prize money. For my 19th birthday, we went to a Jerry Springer taping. This was about 12 years ago when it was still in Chicago. It's faker than I thought, but far more entertaining than seeing the occasional episode on TV. The guests are smaller time actors trying to get screen time in. One was actually an eloquent British woman, but her character was supposed to be a gutter dyke. Not sure that would fly nowadays. Most of what's filmed is never used and you also get tired from non-stop clapping. However, during breaks they show live marionette scenes and also give beads to women if they go topless. These are audience members. You're also encouraged to antagonize the actors on stage with one-liners. 10/10 would never go back, but it was fun. Not me, but my uncle's friend went on Big Brother this year and was a completely different person. They made him the villain of the show, which is completely different to him in real life. He's actually a really nice footy bloke. I was in a sort of kids racing games show. It was cancelled shortly after I participated on it. I can't remember the exact details because I was like 6 or 7, but I will never forget how they made me feel. Basically, we were a bunch of little kids racing each other to complete the most games in a certain time. If you completed the whole thing, around 20 games or so, without the time running out nor breaking certain rules for each level, you won a ton of toys or something like that. They made test runs that were actually them recording the whole thing without us knowing. I completed the whole thing in like 7 minutes. It was supposed to last at least 15. The level helpers took me aside and told me it was an amazing run, so I got qualified to appear on the TV show. In the actual recording, the level helpers sabotaged me. He grabbed me to prevent me from popping the balloons of the first level, pushed balloons away from me, pushed the correct balloons towards other kids. You were supposed to pop balloons to find a key for the next level. Gave me timeout for breaking rules that I wasn't breaking. I specifically remember running up a ramp after being sabotaged a lot by the helper sir to get to my next level. I was catching up to the other kids, and they ducking grabbed my ankle and made me fall off the ramp. I was disqualified because I took too long to get to the other level. They forced me to sit on the losers box and watch all of the other kids that I had already beaten up in the test run finish the thing and win. I did not appear in that episode when it showed on TV, not even me failing. Been on a few in the UK, most notably The Chase. In all honesty, there's little in the way of secrets. I met my team on The Chase that morning in the hotel waiting for the taxi. On one show we were kept apart from our opponents, probably to stop colluding about splitting or stealing. Another was just a long wait in the green room waiting for other episodes to film. As other people have said, clothes are important. No logos, solid colors, no solid black or white though. Had very little interaction with hosts other than between takes or when they introduce themselves before the show. They have a job to do, so can't just spend time shooting the it with you. That being said, Bradley Walsh was really nice. Oh, The Chase. You and Bradley legitimately have no idea which chaser you will face. Bradley likes the surprise of it apparently. A lot of his bits are ad-libbed, too. I was in the audience of a game show and the host didn't interact with us at all. Instead, to keep the audience spirits up, they had this guy joke around with the audience between shows. I think it was 5 shows in one day or something. He was funnier than the host, actually. When I was a kid I went to a family game show with my uncle. The theme of the show was animal life, so it featured interviews, musical performances etc. In between the questions we had to answer. None of that was shot in the order you see on TV. We shot questions and answers all in one go. Everything else had already been shot before and they used sound effects to make you think it was sequential. I was on one that required like 30-second shot, don't quite remember, of the contestants scrambling around picking up the supplies they want. Turns out we didn't need nearly that long. But they had us continue to scramble and push through even though there was plenty of space and no real rush. Not exactly a game show, but Conan plays awesome indie alt rock during commercials and the pre-show. Had a teacher in middle school who won full carpeting for a house on The Price is Right when he was in grad school. He did not own a home in grad school. He also said you could see which games were coming up in line off on the side. And literally everyone was trying to hold out winning the first game for Plinko lol. Edit. Words. I was in the audience of Polish versions of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. To prevent cheating you have to pass 2 metal detector gates before entering studio. No phone or other electronic allowed. Everything takes so long here. Episode lasts around 30 minutes, but recording at 2-3 hours. There are only 3 episodes recorded every day. Once the big screen behind host back broke and we had to sit for 4 hours until it was repaired. At least we got paid extra. Friend, you phone in one of the lifelines is sitting in the same building as studio. Just other room. I've also been author a few questions for Jeopardy, which is called Varbank here. Pretty badass name. Most of the authors had to be PhD or experienced experts in their field. I was accepted as a student just because they were short on economy and mathematics question. Sadly it was only one-time gig, but it was pretty fun seeing contestants trying to find question for answers I wrote. It also paid pretty nice. 100 zlotys. So around $25 for each 5 question from one category, which was like 15 minutes of work. I was a contestant on The Price is Right. They don't choose people at random. They interview everyone in the audience for about 30 seconds earlier in the day and decide who to pick based off that. Not really a game show, but I was an audience member with my class for America's Funniest Videos. They literally had empty plate cups at some tables and a light up sign telling us when to laugh. Sometimes they would even move audience members depending on how well they laugh. This field trip was for our school drama club BTW. You don't collect any of the prizes until that episode airs. It can be many months. A friend made it to the showcase showdown and lost on pig. I did get a shout out when he spun the wheel. I went to 2 separate recordings of the BBC Robot Wars revival a couple years back as an audience member, which to my surprise was actually fairly accurate to what is seen on TV. The main things I can remember being of note are 1. The pits and the arena are actually right next to each other with no dividers. This one is more notable since the original run made it seem like there were different rooms. It was pretty much just a warehouse outside Glasgow. They stuck an arena and some seating in. 2. The robots are all quite small, even circular lit. I'm struggling to come up with a size comparison that isn't really weird, but he could just about fit in a bath for reference. 3. There is a lot of waiting between matches. There were a couple of times when teams were having technical difficulties that they'd switch matches around for more time, but often you'd be waiting 30 minutes or more between bouts. They had a local radio host there to keep us entertained during low carnage moments. 4. The robots with spinning weapons are far more terrifying in person. It's hard for the camera to properly convey that hum of dread as Carbide got its blade up to speed. Or the feeling in the room when a piece of robot comes flying off and embeds itself partway through the plexiglass barrier surrounding the arena. 10/10. Just as good as I'd imagined it would be. How fast they want to get rid of you when it's over. I was on Millionaire and it ends when they shoot everyone gathering around the host. Laughing, shaking hands etc as if it's the start of an after party. They end the shot and then you have just a few minutes to grab your stuff from the dressing room and get on the bus out of there. I can understand it. Their post-production work is just beginning, and most of the contestants are about to get a big disappointment hangover. You arrive full of hopes and dreams and then most people will not get into the chair, or will flame out pretty quickly. Some of the contestants were already starting to get cranky, and the production staff have no further use for them. I got Top Gear tickets before the original cast left. It was a great day, but I didn't expect the director to keep stopping to move audience members around. He openly admitted that the best looking disabled charity workers will get to be at the front in view of the cameras. You could see so many die inside when he's like, you. Can you take 2 steps back please? I was on a trivia show and the game was over, but the other 2 players tied. So we had to do more questions until one of them got one wrong. That way the final scores would have a clear first, second, and third. I attended a taping of Conan several years ago. As soon as the show is finished, Conan grabs a mic and roams the aisles while singing. This is the after the show song that nobody knows about or something similar. Definitely a crooner. And I openly swooned because come on, Conan is a dream and a treasure. My dad was on Countdown on Channel 4, UK broadcaster, back in the days of Richard Whiteley. There is a lot of stuff that gets repeated and recorded multiple times to fix stuff like reflections off glasses, coughing, eyes closed, continuity, etc. Also, Carol Vorderman wasn't the math genius she was portrayed as. She did do most of the numbers game calculations, but for the really hard ones where neither contestant can get the exact answer, it wasn't Carol who worked it out. It was a Scottish guy called Michael Wiley. He'd spend ages scribbling away while the rest of the show was being recorded, and when he eventually worked it out, the calculations would be passed back to Carol, who would record her bit, which was then edited into the show to make it look like she had worked it out in real time. Edit. The fat-fingered swipe keyboard typo. Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune both film at Sony Pictures. When I interned there, I got to go watch a Jeopardy taping on 2 separate occasions. During commercial breaks, Alex Trebek walks out into the audience and asks if anyone has any questions for him. He's really funny and I got to ask him a few. My friend that I brought used his one question to this absolute TV icon to ask him if he had ever seen a video called Jeopardy, where it's basically all the contestants named Jeff. The questions are all Jeff and the answers are all Jeff. Alex just looked confused and said, "Jeopardy? No, I don't think I have," and walked away. One of the Clue Crew people, I can't remember his name, would talk to us a lot and told my friend he saw it. I just like to think that Alex went home that night and remembered my friend's weird question, then watched it and thought about him. Not a game show, but me and my sister were in the audience of America's Got Talent a couple years ago. It was winter and freezing outside, but because they were releasing it in the warmer months, they asked everyone to take off all their coats etc to make it look as live as possible, which sucked because I was still cold, haha. I only remember 2 acts, so one was Piff the Magic Dragon and another guy who the audience and judges booed and disliked. The guy who was booed, unfortunately, had to stay on stage longer because the producers wanted more shots or something. I remember how uncomfortable he looked while everyone had to wait silently, staring at him, while the producers made up their minds. Edit. Said X Factor instead of America's Got Talent, lol. The short people stand on risers to make it look like everyone's the same height. Was in the audience for some new game show like 2 years ago. Can't remember the name, but Alec Baldwin was the host. Turns out he specifically works only in chilly temperature, around 62 degrees if I remember right. Alex Trebek is just as no bullet and likable as he appears on TV. During commercial breaks he took questions and told stories, communicating and joking with the audience the whole time. I was on Wheel of Fortune. 1. The wheel weighs a ton. Some people might watch and think that it's easy to target a particular dollar wedge, but to spin that thing well, you practically have to throw your arm out. 2. Pat Sajak is really quick-witted. In the taping before us, they filmed 5-6 episodes at once. A woman won the prize puzzle and started to cry like crazy as they cast a commercial. Sajak yelled to the director, or someone in the production crew, to throw him a box of tissues, so that when cameras came back up, he could be dabbing her tears as a joke. It was very lighthearted and added to the game show atmosphere, for sure. 3. The bonus round wheel does not weigh a ton. I was the night's champion, but sadly did not get the bonus puzzle for an extra $45,000. The smaller wheel looks a lot like the main one, and they don't give you a practice spin. So I just wound up and threw that sucker and I thought it was going to fly into outer space. So, if you tape a show but it never airs, you won't get the prizes and money you won. Years ago I was on the most renowned, long-running game show in my country, Sale of the Century, which aired every weeknight at 7 PM nationwide. I got on the show and won fancy golf clubs and $10K prize money. Safe, right? My show was scheduled to air about 2 months later on Wednesday, the 12th of September, 2001. 24 hours earlier all regular programming was suspended, and my show was cancelled, but I was saved because another contestant was a carryover champ, and for continuity, they had to air it at some point, which they did, highly irregularly. That following Saturday night, Those terrorists never won out. I was on Jenny Jones back in the day of Rude Jude. I had brought my friend on. Started as a joke. I guess we were being too chill cause between shots. They told us that if we didn't get louder, they would kick us off and make us walk home. So after the break, I stood up and yelled at the audience. That's how they get the shots of people standing and yelling. Not a game show, but I lived in Halifax for a while, so I went to a lot of this hour has 22 minutes tapings because visiting friends' family would want to go. They pump you full of cheap wine before you go in. Filming takes generally 2 to 3 hours. To my disappointment, most of the actors were decent with the exception of Sean Majumdar, who was always entertaining people between takes, and the odd guest star. If you ever wonder why the live studio audience laughs hardest at bad jokes, it's because if one didn't get a genuine laugh the first time, they'd replay it and flash the applause sign until it did. I was on Pointless in the UK. If you're the first couple to answer and haven't thought of anything, they just give you longer by doing some chatting with the other contestants. Alex and Richard were incredibly friendly, and Richard has the biggest hands I've ever seen. Robot Wars. Waiting about half an hour between each battle. They will film either a heat or all the finals in a single day. If you were lucky, like I was, you'd see all the most popular robots fighting it out in the finals. The bit where the lights go out and all focus is on the arena. After the big scary voice says Robotaires, stand by, there is a pause that could be anything from 10 to 30 seconds in which the entire building is silent. You can hear a pin drop. Then you get the countdown, and I do not is one of the coolest, most intense things I've ever sat through. Everything looks way cheaper in person. Like most stuff is made of plywood. Commercial breaks usually include a weird stage manager telling you to do something different or the audience to get more involved. Those were as a contestant. Working on those shows is a whole other story. I nearly murdered the director of Mr. Kef because we spent 12 hours setting up the sets. Then he wanted everything to shift over about a foot. Luckily the union stepped in and said nope. UK weakest link contestant. Although the show appears quite frantic and fast paced, there was at least a 10-minute break in between each round. And would leave the studio set and you had an opportunity to appeal questions you think you might have got right. Happened a few times. Have a drink. Use the loo etc. If the appeal was upheld, you redid the whole round. You then voted a person off and there would be another short break before they did the and speaking to people. We were warned that Anne was playing a character and that we should try to be witty. They also asked you in your application forms what subjects questions you would be good at, also what you would be weakest at. Surprise surprise, people, including me, started getting multiple questions on their weak areas. We all realized as we discussed after the show. This leads me to believe the game is semi-fixed stacked in certain people's favor. Fun experience. Free food, did not win but was not the first Aussie weakest link. I was on Slime Time Live because my family visited Universal Studios Florida, including the old school Nickelodeon Studios building. They gave my sister and I an entire change of clothes, including boxer shorts, I'm a girl too, and water shows. Our team was eliminated the first round, so they took us back to get dressed in our regular clothes. Then we got to sit in the audience for the rest of the show. My family took 2 weeks off of school in order to make that Florida trip. I realized that Slime Time Live only filmed on weekdays, and not during summer. So 12-year-old me came to the conclusion that you had to be playing hooky in order to get on the show. This is game show adjacent, but I went to a live eviction for Big Brother Canada during the first season. If anyone is familiar, it's specifically the eviction where Peter was voted out, and Gary was voted back in. Erisa Cox, the host, was actually super great and personable with the audience in between takes. They would make us film cheers applause if they weren't loud enough. And there was what I later found out they called the hot row. Everyone had assigned seating going in, but PAs would roam around and move people so that attractive people were essentially the ones whose faces would be visible on screen in the audience. I found out more about this after because I hung out with some friends who worked for the production. It's how I got the tickets, and they were complaining about a specific PA who was doing a bad job of assigning the hot row because he kept picking people he thought were dressed well, as opposed to just being good looking. Even though the episode itself is an hour, I think it took somewhere between 2-3 hours to film. I remember feeling gross and sweaty and uncomfortable when it was over because the seating was just uncomfortable metal folding chairs. It also doesn't air live, obviously. They record it a few hours before it's set to air. Once the whole thing is over, they practically push you out the door. My mum was in the audience for a Christmas special of Pointless in the UK. She says a lot of stuff gets cut, mostly when contestants are struggling to come up with an answer. They had one guy on a Santa, and in one round he was there for ages before he could think of an answer. The only other bizarre thing was it was filmed in May. She also says Richard Osman is massive, but you don't see it on screen because he sat down the whole time. I was a contestant in a TV show. My other contestant was sweating insane amounts on his head. After every few questions they would stop to powder all the sweaty foreheads so they wouldn't become shiny. It was a good experience. Crew was friendly and hilarious. I was a judge in a segment on something called Beauty and the Geek many years back. Not knowing much about how reality shows work, I was kinda surprised to see almost every take on the show done repeatedly, over and over until the producer's director was satisfied with the final product. Kinda burst a balloon for me, thinking reality television was spontaneous and unedited for the most part.